Hi, everyone, and welcome to A Tweet to Your Younger Self. My name is Carrie Smith. I'm a principal with Wonderbots. Wonderbots is an intelligent RPA service provider serving clients worldwide with innovative pre-built solutions, software, and custom programs. Recently, our managing partner, Steve LaValle, had the opportunity to sit down and do a virtual Q&A panel with 3 of our clients. InterContinental Hotels Group, a global hospitality company with more than 5,600 hotels in nearly 100 countries. Equinix, a global leader in collocation data centers with 205 data centers in 25 countries on 5 continents. And ViacomCBS, a leading global media and entertainment company that creates premium content and experiences for audiences worldwide. Let's tune into their conversation.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining our Q&A panel. We have with us three of my colleagues and friends: Elliot from IHG, Jaideep from Equinix, and James from ViacomCBS. So I'd ask each of you to just take a moment and kind of introduce yourself.
Sure. Elliot Stiver has been with IHG for about 2 years now. Was hired by them to stand up our Center of Excellence for robotics, automation, artificial intelligence, kind of all things there. Have about 30 automations up and running right now, and working on a couple artificial intelligence initiatives, and really enjoying it.
Excellent. Thanks, Elliot. Jaideep, same question.
Hi, Jaideep Vijaykar. I manage the finance strategy and transformation team sitting within the CF organization. We set up a digital workforce center of excellence a couple years back. We've been on our RPA journey a little longer than that. We started back in 2016. We have been running at full speed almost for the last 2 years. Have about 30 bots in production across almost all of our finance functions. I've been with Equinix for about 6 years now.
Okay. Thanks, Jaideep. And James?
Hi, I've been at ViacomCBS about 4 years and have spent most of my time there on different continuous improvement initiatives. We've been working with RPA, I think a little bit over 2 years now within our company.
So, you know, like if I just came to you and you guys are like, I just got this job, I don't know what to do. Because we always say, become a self-sustaining program before you try to be a self-sufficient program. Because you need to be generating enough value to pay for yourself. Otherwise, your management team is going to kind of lose faith and kind of move on. So, Elliot, if I asked that to you, what would you say?
So I think we did it pretty well as far as not focusing on a specific area. You know, we have a broad reach across the whole company, and it's helped us win converts and helped us build sort of support behind the whole program. So I've talked to other people who have focused only, say, on finance or only on a certain area in the company. It seems like that compartmentalizes things too much. So I would advise you, as somebody starting off on your RPA journey, to not necessarily focus down on one area, to basically build support through the entire organization, because that seems to have worked pretty well for us.
Okay, but Jaideep, on your side, you guys focused on so it's like everything's a little different. So what do you think?
The way we did focus on like we started with the transactional teams, but what we would sort of recommend others is to not focus on a specific, like delivering specific automations, but build broader frameworks as you start off, because that allows you to expand more rapidly once you build that critical mass. So that is my advice, is not to take like a report run as an automation, right? Build a reporting framework. Don't look at automating a specific vendor invoice, but look at building an invoicing framework. So all of what we did in the beginning were frameworks rather than specific automation. And that now is paying dividends, because we can now onboard new teams, new capabilities, sort of branch out, and the acceleration of adoption is much faster now in the second year of this journey.
Okay. And James, how about from your guys' perspective? Because you had a little bit of, you were across the board, kind of more like what Elliot was saying, if I remember. We had multiple finance and then some revenue.
So yeah, we were able to be successful across a large program, but I think an aspect of the key of that success was having an early win. We did have an early procure to pay win that we were able to celebrate. And I think that again gets back to the people factor. If you have an early win that can be celebrated, and the people who are involved with that are a success, as well as the RPA team, that builds a foundation for the rest of the program.
Now,
I think
go ahead,
the
sorry.
other thing that comes to mind, though, is I would think hard about how early or at what point tying the benefits of RPA to specific FTE savings or cuts, at what point in the program does that make sense? Because that can impact the early buy-in as well.
So I'm sorry. So do it sooner, do it later, or I'm sorry, were you?
Consider doing it later, because if people see RPA as just, this is a way to take away my heads, some people might initially be disincentivized or find a way to decouple the two. They're related, but it's done in the background as opposed to like, hey, you're going to pay for an automation with, tell me how many heads you're going to give me to get this automation. It has the potential to disincentivize some of the buy-in, especially when you're trying to initially stand it up.
Yeah, we had a similar thing. I agree completely.
So what was your experience with that, Elliot?
Just that was actually really well passed down from management, was that basically our initial mandate was not to focus on specific, FTEs or even cost savings necessarily. It was to get buy-in from the organization and solve people's problems, basically reduce pain points through automation. And that really served us well as far as making people more comfortable with it and getting pretty much all the divisions of the company to embrace it.
Yeah, we actually got a little lucky in the sense one of the top stakeholders, sort of senior leadership, liked the concept and pushed this in his function. And then as we were delivering this automation, he sort of took over the leadership of the strategy and transformation team. And that helped push this. He was then bought in or sort of invested in making this successful. So he helped in the message at the senior level, the first automations that we did, the success of those. And that sort of set the tone for the rest of the organization. So senior leadership, I think James mentioned that earlier, senior leadership buy-in is critical. Without that, it does become that much tougher, and you got to prove a lot more to make it successful. But with senior leadership buy-in, you do get people supporting you much faster.
It's like, what's your favorite automation?
So I love all of my children. But I do have Oscar, which is, so we name all our bots to make them more relatable to the teams. And we have like bot images that we circulate and cutouts. And Oscar, which is our reporting bot, is sort of my favorite. And the simple reason being, we started off with automating reports. I think it was 3 or 4 reports in Oracle at the beginning, way back when we started the journey. But as I said, we set up a framework, and it was not a full-fledged, not a focused run these 4 reports only. We built in partnership with Wonderbots a framework where you could automate any report in any system through like a config file. And that it started with 4 reports, but now it's running at 30 different reports across 17 different teams, multiple times a day. So almost, I think last month it ran 1,500 reports in the whole month. And it runs the report, it saves it to a folder or emails it and sends it out to different teams. We've not just standardized the way people are running reports, but we've sort of standardized the naming convention of the output, where it is stored. We've consolidated like different people running the same reports. Instead of that, the bot runs it once and distributes it to everybody. So it's been our sort of go-to, almost like our entry point into a lot of functions, because it's the simplest thing to automate. All teams are requiring reports. So we just get them to automate a report. They understand how it works, and then from there on we start talking about other things. So that I think has been my most favorite bot.
And certainly something that all of the business leaders can relate to across the country. Because you do see a lot of companies or teams just starting out will create an individual automation to run a report, and then they'll create another automation, and then and then before long you have 30. This one automation does the work of 30 individual automations because of the approach. But a lot of people they fall down this trap, and then they end up with 30, and then if something happens, and you've got to maintain 30. So this approach has probably made them easier for you to manage as well. So Elliot, how about you? Do you have a favorite?
Yeah, I mean, the one that comes to mind initially here is basically an automation we did in response to the coronavirus issue, where we wanted to make sure that our members for our ambassador program, could have an extended membership stay. So usually what would happen is basically the member would call in and say there was a problem, they'd have to change that record individually. And that's what was going to have to happen for 112,000 members. So we were able to do a bot that basically would go in and change those records individually. And basically we're both time savings wise and, addressing the issue wise, it was really successful because the members got, immediate response, and we also didn't waste a bunch of time manually changing those records.
Yeah, so it was probably not a terribly sophisticated automation, but a very impactful automation that you guys could, so here was IHG was in need, and your team was able to jump up and do something that nobody else could do.
Correct.
In the time frame that it was. Yeah, that's an awesome. See, so they don't have to be big frameworks. They can be just the right thing at the right time. Right. So there's a philosophy that I've heard others say: the robot doesn't care if it's a bad process. It'll do the work. Right. Or other people say you got to re-engineer the whole company before you can automate anything, and the answer, of course, is always somewhere in between. What's the best thing to do when you're looking at a process?
You need to take that step back and think, are there some things that this doesn't make sense, or evaluate this is going to drive high complexity in an automation. I don't necessarily think that you need to completely engineer a process and make it perfect for an automation, but one particular case study with us, a different automation, we got knee deep in it, and we thought that we had most of it completed. But then there was this one particular step that all of a sudden we discovered, there's about 80 different paths that screen can take. Instead of building 80 different paths in an automation, we could replace that with a SQL query. Isn't that 10 times easier, 10 times less complex? You need to figure out the opportunities like that in advance, where this aspect of the process is going to drive an order of magnitude difference in complexity of the automation. You need to make sure that you absolutely handle those sorts of cases at a minimum. So that's the floor.
And then Jaideep, you're nodding along. So.
Yeah, so we actually sit within the strategy and transformation team, right? So our focus is really on the process streamlining, process improvement, and then RPA is one of the toolkits we use to automate the clean process. So we do always try and approach it from the process perspective, clean up a process as much as possible, and then automate that. We've seen that helps not just minimize the technical debt of the automation, but also allows us to look at the overall process of whatever is not being automated. We re-engineer that piece also. So the humans that are going to be doing anything that is left over are much happier with what we've left them with. So that's been our go-to. So we try people, process, and then technology approach. And then even within the technology, as we go to automation, like James said, we look at options to simplify the way we do it. So the robot way need not follow the human way. We look at ways to get data from the back end. I use APIs rather than going through the front end for everything. And then any shortcuts that we could use on the screen, which a human would not typically use, like getting those URLs, the exact URL to go to a particular point in the page, stuff like that, which the bot can easily do. We try and use those techniques to minimize the clicks that the bot has to do on the screen. So that has helped us keep the complexity of our automations to a manageable level.
And Elliot, you're nodding along. Did you want to add on to that?
Yeah, I mean, so I think it's a couple things. Made me think of actually the process we went through with you guys, right, where you were able to use the URLs in Tableau to actually minimize the number of clicks. Where we figured out that there was a way to basically just put the screen we wanted into the URL, and that was actually a big time savings, which was great. But as far as the original question went, I think we have a pretty interesting situation where we're under global strategy, basically ARM, and we also fall under, my boss is the vice president of continuous improvement. So basically, we look at processes for automation, and if we find that it's not ripe for automation yet, we toss it to the other side of our house, so to speak, and they take it over as far as continuous improvement and try to refine that process, and then pass it back to us for automating. So it's actually kind of a hand-in-hand process.
Yeah. So I'd kind of summarize what I'm hearing you guys say. So when we look at an automation that's done by people today, that automation is that process, is set up in a way for people to use, for people to perform. So a person can't maintain all the URLs in their head. They can't keep large amounts of data, and do calculations in their head. So there are different checkpoints and extra steps in a process for when people do it. But we have to remember that the digital worker is also a computer, so he doesn't need to do that. So as you're saying, is like the digital worker, so James, you said, right, can just do an SQL against a database, and so we could skip steps in the process. So to the minimum to this is, we would always say, as we've worked with each one of you, is to kind of streamline out these human accommodations in the process, and like that's like the starting point. And then of course, as Jaideep was saying, is design for reusability. So frameworks and externalizing the business rules and config files. So guys, on your journeys, there had to have been bumps along the way. So from your view, what have been your greatest challenges that you've had to take some action on, and what did you do? Because it's a new program. There's always ups and downs on new programs. So spanning the whole couple of years that you were doing, what would you say is, I'm so glad we got through that? So I want to start with Jaideep.
Our biggest obstacle was deciding the ownership and the location of the center of excellence. There were differing views on who should run this for Equinix. IT had a strong feeling that this was a technology initiative, so it needs to be done with IT. And for finance, we felt it was a business-focused technology that could be run by people like me and my team who had a mix of technology and process experience. So now IT has their own set of responsibilities. We have our own set of responsibilities, and it's been a very successful model for us. So that was our biggest obstacle that we took the time to work through, rather than just try and shove it away or push it out in the future.
So if I could ask a question, you guys kind of did a mid-course correction, all right, or an early correction, because didn't it start under IT and then people weren't quite happy with how it was going, and then it pivoted to
we did, yeah. So we did try it out with IT running it with external partner, and I think there were a few things wrong. It was not just the IT that was the problem. I don't want to put it that way.
Of course, yeah.
There were a few things wrong with the initial pilot. Sort of a perfect storm of bad things coming together. We didn't have the right use cases. We didn't have the involvement from the business SMEs. The integration partner was a challenge. So all of that sort of made the first pilot fail. And we took the right decision to halt that pilot in time, rather than continuing with a bad decision. And that's where we partnered with IT. We went out and looked for a new implementation partner in you guys, and sort of re-looked at the use cases that would give us that initial win. So the second pilot that we started off had learnings from the first pilot and corrections that we did, which is sort of what made the second go much more successful.
And of course, you were working with us at that point, so
Yes.
we would not let you fail after that. Elliot, would you, what would be your thinking around obstacles?
I guess for us, it was kind of defining what a bot is as far as how the organization perceives it. So there was definitely a learning process working with security and working with privacy teams and basically making sure that, how is the bot going to be treated? Does the bot have to have the same kind of password that a user would have that expires every 90 days, or can the bot have a password that only expires once a year? That kind of issues as far as, what is the bot? How does the organization perceive the bot?
Okay. And what did you ultimately decide? Does the bot have a password that expires every year or every 6 months?
We made some concessions, right? So it was originally kind of a very, not a lot of cooperation, but as we sort of explained and what the bot does, and as people have seen how the bots perform, we've gotten some, definitely some real progress within the organization as far as recognizing the bot is kind of a unique entity and needs to have some exceptions around it.
I would actually amplify what Jaydeep and Elliot said. I think that the operating model is absolutely critical. I think thinking through how do you get the right combination of business intimacy, technical expertise, and an appetite for rapid transformational change in a collective working group is critical. I'd say also related to that, you're going to need to collaborate with IT on this. IT may lead it, it may be business led, but understanding what does a win look like for IT and how can the operating model be structured in such a way so that everybody wins, including IT and what's important on their front. And then I would also echo Elliot, is a bot a computer, is a bot a person? We ended up being very conservative with a lot of our things, but I think that also one of the places where we arrived at is even though we set a lot of very conservative policies, I think that the risks that we ended up being most concerned about was internal bad actors who can do something with a bot as opposed to the bot itself being Judgment Day and screwing up our financials.
Yeah. Elliot, how are you guys generating the ideas for at IHG?
So we've actually taken kind of a top-down and a bottom-up approach. So we run, little road shows across the company, just sort of explaining what bots can do, try to get ideas from people on the ground actually doing the processes. But we've also been proactive in going out to basically most of the VPs and SVPs, and again, just explaining to them, our team and our function, and trying to get them to generate ideas and put us in touch with whoever they feel the SMEs would be on that function. So it's actually worked pretty well. We've got a pretty good pipeline built up.
Do you get a lot? Do any of you get a lot of sort of grassroots submissions, or people sending you emails out of the blue like, "Hey, I wish you could do X, Y, Z"?
As we've gotten more exposure to the company and people are sort of recognizing that there is this internal group that does this stuff, we do get emails out of the blue these days with some good ideas, actually.
Okay. And do you apply? How do you score the ideas, Elliot? How do you determine what to do? So
we have kind of it's basically 13 different areas that we look at, and it sounds more complex than it is, but it's just really a kind of real fast mini business case per idea, less than a page, but just looking at sort of, as you'd expect, the complexity, the repeatability, all the things that you look for bots. And we just kind of score it and give it a rough score for our pipeline, and then kind of rank it accordingly, and then figure out how to prioritize it for development.
Okay. And James at CBS, how did you guys develop your pipeline initially? Was it top down, bottoms up, or like what was your roadshow like?
It was sounds like it was somewhat similar to Elliot. We had a top down. We did have some transformation programs in flight where outside consultants came up with some targets. In conjunction with that, we had road shows with different teams. And then one of the things that I think helped it cascade a little bit, we actually put together a little video of one of our early automations to try to bring it to life, because bots, RPA, and automation, it can be an abstract concept, and that helps it become a little bit more tangible. Like, what does it mean? What can it do? What does it look like? So that helped bring that alive to some of the different business units.
Okay, so the little a short video to just kind of really illustrate the concept helps a lot of people.
Yep.
We found that too. It's kind of hard sometimes to relate to this if you're brand new to it, but as soon as you see it in action, it's like, that's how it works. Shadeep, how about you guys? How are you driving your backlog, and how are you scoring it?
Yeah, so we similarly started with the road shows in the beginning. We started attending staff meetings at the VP level, VPs, and maybe 2 levels down staff meetings, walk them through what the whole concept was, right? So at that time, not many people knew about RPA. So we had to sort of explain the whole RPA concept, give them examples, and then give them a template to fill out to provide us with the inputs. And we have about 4 or 5 criteria that we use to score. One is the complexity of the automation, like number of systems, number of clicks, screens, stuff like that. And then the other is the benefits. So how often do you run it? How much time does it take? How many people do that? And we create sort of a matrix, a 2x2 matrix of the complexity versus the benefits. And we try and use that to the extent possible. But again, these are some of these things we've done. Some of the lower priority items, or the things that are not in that top right quadrant, we have done those because we are trying to get into a new area. We were sort of trying to address a need of a senior VP who was influential. So there have been times when we've not strictly gone by a score, but more from a relationship perspective to spread the knowledge about the automation.
Yep, agreed.
What would be something that you'd like to do or that you're planning to do?
For us at Equinix, I think one of the big things we are seeing across the board is the ability to extract information from unstructured data. So it could be sales contracts, reading sales contracts and understanding what the terms are, what are the specifics about that. The other one is around matching two different sources of data on a fuzzy basis. You have description here and description there. They don't match exactly, but we need to do that. We have a lot of use cases in AP, in AR, cash management, in GL reconciliations.
So Elliot or James, same for you guys, or are you going down to the different paths?
So go ahead, James. Sorry.
Yeah, we've done some similar things with the natural language processing. For us, it was a lot more in some of the finance documents perspective. One of the things that we're exploring currently, we're getting a little bit more involved in some IT-related automations. Our organization recently started adopting more across the board Slack, and we're trying to build out some opportunities with Slack-triggered automations.
Okay, excellent. And Elliot, I'm sorry, back to you.
No, I think I'm kind of on Jaideep's kind of page here, where something that caught me a little off guard was the fact that kind of getting the data structured in some cases for us is costing as much as the actual project itself. So it's been a huge effort actually to work with our internal technology teams to basically get the data from the systems, multiple systems that they're in right now, into the system we need it to be and get it structured. So definitely an unexpected sort of consequence from some of the projects we've been doing.
So great discussion, guys. So in the spirit of social world now, I want to give you the opportunity to send yourself a tweet, and receive it like 2-3 years ago when you're first getting started. So you don't get to send the roadmap, you don't get to send the management reports. You get to send yourself a short message. So So Elliot, let me start with you. What would you tell yourself when you were just starting out in this role?
It's not particularly pithy or anything, but I think my advice to myself would have been pay more attention to system access. That's been one of our biggest sort of hang-ups, is actually getting access to the various internal systems. So working with global technology internally has been more important than I expected initially.
So bring the IT team a little bit closer into the fold. Okay.
Absolutely.
James, why don't you go next?
Sure. I'd say remember the people. Lateral relationships are critical.
Okay. And then Jaddeep, what would you add?
So from my side, I would say, actually there are two messages, but the main one is go slow to go fast, invest upfront, make sure you put in that investment so that you can reap the benefits later. The second one, if you want, is to make sure IT is brought along with you for the journey, involve them earlier rather than later.
Okay. Excellent advice from all of you. Thank you. Okay. Well, thank you guys. You are an awesome, awesome panel. And thank you for being so generous with your time and sharing your learnings and your experience. It has been, for Wonderbots, it's been a pleasure to work with each one of you. We like to say we don't have clients, we have a fan club. And we are so happy to have you guys in our fan club. So thank you again. So long.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you. Thanks, Steve.
Our pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thanks for watching. Visit wonderbots.com. That's Wonder, WONDERBOTZ.com, to learn more about how to succeed in intelligent RPA.